Hello and welcome back to the stream. Today I am picking up on Inktober, prompt number 2 where I left off yesterday, and I've made some pretty good progress kind of off screen. I want to take a second and kind of talk about like what it is that I'm drawing, what's been going on, just a quick kind of episode recap of what happened yesterday. What's going on, the Flying Frog? Welcome to the stream. And basically, I was working on the prompt Discover. And this is for Inktober, just as a quick repeat. So what I'm doing is I'm actually sketching out this landscape that I've been working on for my world building project, and it kind of had like a lot of abstract shapes on it from yesterday, and really what's happened between the last stream, the evening following the stream, and this stream right now is that I've kind of put on a lot more detail onto this. We have our subject kind of much more in focus, higher contours in terms of just like, that quantity count, and more detail overall. We've also got some information with regard to the rest of the landscape and things of that nature, and really everything is just kind of sketched out, at least in graphite, as you can see here with this kind of lead pencil. And so, like the name suggests, for Inktober, I think that this drawing is missing kind of one important piece, and that's going to be the actual ink. And so I've been using Faber-Castell pens to really kind of put on the detail for a lot of the other pieces that I've been making. And so for this one, I'm going to end up doing the same thing. I'm actually just going to pull out the pin that kind of was working for me last time. I have to check the sizes. I think that's the one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start creating some higher contrast lines for this piece here. And so really kind of the next steps that I'm going to start working on in this stream are going to be putting on those details, increasing the contrast, kind of like with what we see here, starting from this edge going all the way up that way, but putting it onto all of this, and then taking a picture and just kind of putting color into it. And that's going to be done in Photoshop, and I'll use a different tablet for that and all of that fun stuff. I might be able to get that started in this same stream. Devonte, welcome back. Happy to have you on. And so, really, I'm going to start getting into it right now. So, as you can see, I kind of started here. I'm going to kind of like pick this back up. I've got some palm trees over here that I want to give some detail to. And that's what's going on. And so, for this part, it kind of takes a little bit of concentration. So if I get very quiet, that is why. Inking is such a delicate process. You can't really fix it if you make a mistake. And like Bob Ross always would say, may he rest in peace, there's no such thing as a mistake, just happy accidents in your drawings. And that's exactly what's going on, should anything kind of befall me in this composition. I hope, So, going on, I'm just going to kind of like start to speed up how I'm putting on these details here. And we've got this beachfront that I want to give some more life to. And because this part of the composition kind of exists more so within the mid-ground, almost background, I guess you could say, but kind of like mid-background, I don't want these contours to be too overwhelming. I kind of want them to be a little thin. And that's because in the foreground here, like with all this kind of like action going on, we're going to have much thicker lines in the areas respective to kind of, emphasize and showcase that kind of weight priority in what subject I'm emphasizing here. And so back to this kind of cove, putting on these lines here. And for this rock formation, these lines in particular are still kind of jagged because that's, well, what rock formations are. Typically, they are jagged and they are not perfectly geometrical. And so, sorry, perfectly geometrical, perfectly symmetrical with how they're presented. And especially for this area back here, I'm going to do the same thing for the brush, for the kind of forest foliage back here. And that's all going to collate together cohesively for this. For everybody hopping onto the stream, how are you all doing? For those of you who want to talk, there is no pressure, by the way, but happy to have you all on. You're more than welcome just to kind of sit back and watch as I start to put some detail on this sketch here. We've got some more trees over here doing that same thing. Light line work, nothing too heavy. Again, that's because of where they're located. You know, mid-ground, background. Don't want it to be too overbearing. Just very delicate. Just like that. And so what's going to happen later is, once this is put into Photoshop, more color and detail will get put onto things like leaves, like the tree trunks, etc. That's another palm tree down. Ooh, Inktober. You know, the flying frog, I was going to do the same thing. And I did not... I guess, okay, so I'm going to talk about this. This is maybe a little bit of a spoiler, but what I wanted to do flying frog was kind of mix prompts between Inktober and Inktober, and you know, themes within my own kind of world building project at the same time. So huge kudos to you for doing Monster Gardens Inktober. I'm going to try to tackle Jake Parker's challenge, Monster Gardens, and some of my own personal you know, design challenges with my art in these next coming days too. I think today was it Rust or something else? I'm not even sure if Inktober officially started now or if that starts in October, but yeah, give me the 411 if you want. And I should probably talk about this. For those of you who are watching who don't know what Inktober is, this is a challenge that Monster Garden, this is another YouTuber who does world building projects. He's got like a huge following. He recently kind of did a call to action to do his own drawing challenge. And kind of like a spoof off of Inktober, which is you know, Jake Parker's challenge that begins in October, Monster Garden decided to do his own with his own unique prompts and, you know, things of that nature. So that's what that is. And cool. Okay, it starts in October too. That sounds fitting. The flying frog, excuse me, seeing as it ends in Tober as well. So that's cool. Yeah, I'll see what I can do just to kind of participate when that time comes around. How many sketches have you made? Okay, so this stone face, this kind of, you know, cliffside, is getting to a spot where it's near completion. it's kind of like the fun part about inking, you know? It's like you take a look at what we have over here, and it's kind of like solidified, it's concretized and put into life. And now I'm just gonna like put the rest into that same level of detail as well too. And all of this, you know, kind of helps me out, not just for like fulfilling the challenge and actually, you know, like inking stuff in, but when I scan these, or I say scan, but when I like take my pictures and put these images, my illustrations into Photoshop or Sketchbook Pro, it just makes it a lot easier, you know, for the program to recognize outlines, and also for myself to recognize like where the hard outlines kind of start and then finish within my work. Just like we're looking at here. Ooh, 2's pretty good. At least, you know, better than me, for sure. So, getting that head start goes a long way. Yeah, that cloud structure is coming along pretty well. I'm kind of loosely, kind of not quite putting a lot of pressure down on some of these lines. I'm kind of keeping it a little light for the handwork. In some areas that are supposed to be especially kind of light or thin when it comes to kind of capturing that application of things, you know, for like shadows or line thicknesses. Especially for this cloud, I don't want it to be too thick, I don't want it to be too thin at the same time. There's a balance of trying to show how much information, how much detail is kind of getting put into the structure without it really kind of overwhelming the eye at the same time too. So that's off to a good start. I'm going to start putting in the rest of these kind of outlines for the background here. Yep, that feels about right. And I think what I'm looking forward to the most once I kind of get around, you know, detailing these parts is working on the foreground. And so one of the things that was kind of a priority for this composition was the ability to showcase motion in this. Like, the theme is discover, and, you know, the kind of area of discovery is kind of meant to be this tower temple that we see over there. But, you know, I want to use every single illustration for something with my work for Kinix, with my work for, you know, the world of Animus. And all of these visuals not only have a place in my world building project, but will also have a place in an art book, in the art book that's revolving around, you know, my world building project once I get around to actually making it. So you'll see these have their debut in due time. One thing I often think about when I'm, like, you know, inking things like this is how difficult someone's life must be if you are a animator doing something similar, because this is this is just kind of like one fraction of what a frame would kind of entail, unless you're doing things digitally, which is still a busy job, but don't know. This is still a lot for me. But I will say it's also a lot of fun at the same time. And one of the challenges I'm kind of trying to work on with this is just to see how quickly I can ink all of this in. And that's just kind of like a personal goalpost. It's not really anything that's like a mandate. But I am curious to see how quickly I can improve putting in these details before uploading things into the computer to do the digital painting work on them. And so I'm just kind of breaking down each portion of this tower by segment with, like what I'm choosing to isolate and outline here. And a lot of the heavy lifting has already been done with the pencil sketches. But everything with regard to like the thickness of the lines and really the kind of rhetoric as to why some lines are thicker or thinner is, my job now. Like defining all of that's my job now. Something that I try to do too is just, incorporating some of these light motifs, these kind of details here in the pattern work, the line work, and that just kind of, at least, for me, for my narrative intent, that's meant to tell another story within a story about, like, the cultures that inhabited this place, or, more about the kind of just world itself that's meant to be discovered as you kind of read. This or that, welcome. I'm saying read as in, like my book is already out. It's not yet. I hate to like tease it in this type of way. Really I should say watch. As you're taking a look at the artwork, the illustrations, and my narration of the lore to all of that, you get to kind of follow along, with the story and kind of the making of with regard to the world and its content, at least until the book gets released. Step by step, I'm just kind of working my way up. We've got these arches for the windows from yesterday, and now I'm just putting on, more of the contour details around them with the ink. And you can just see like how much this contrast is already kind of popping off the page as soon as the ink is applied. And this is without like a lot of shading or things of that nature. The contour work is perhaps one of the most important parts of my process before I even, consider shading and, all of that stuff affiliated with it. And that's exactly what we're looking at right here. Just pure contours. And you can see the kind of beginnings of the shading line work, obviously when you look at areas like this and like that, but, that's really meant to kind of be truly defined once I go back with the pen and do what I need to do. And so you'll notice a lot of hatching or, like diagonal line work to illustrate, what's shadow and what's kind of cast shadow. And that's a really convenient technique to quickly, illustrate like what I just said basically, without having to, kind of like expend a lot of resources on that segment, whatever it is. That's what we're getting with this. I'm still trying to race the clock right now. I think I probably started the stream, what, like 10 minutes ago, maybe? And so if that's the case, I'm gonna see how far I can get in half an hour. Hopefully to completion with the line work. And then from there, I'm going to try to start the process of getting this in the computer. I'm really, putting on that color work, or at least starting it, in the kind of next portion of this. And that's what's really going to give this that next kind of level up when it comes to, the life that's getting breathed into it. Yo, Yak of Art, welcome to the stream, my dude. What's going on? And yeah, I've been streaming, not quite, I mean, like every day for the past couple of days, yes, but just whenever I've gotten this itch to draw for Inktober, I've just kind of been like, you know what? How about I film this? How about I just like make it public and see what people say about it? So, yeah, it's just kind of been like, for this week, for October, going into October, I mean, I think it's going to be a little bit more of like a almost everyday type of thing. Definitely on Tuesdays consistently. That's where I'll do like a kind of big stream, so to speak. And then for kind of like the light work, yeah, I'm thinking about like every day, maybe every other day. So yeah, still trying to figure it out. And what I'm doing right here, you can see this tower, right? And how it's kind of just like tilting over, and you've got these kind of circular accents on it. I want these to be weathered down, and you're gonna notice that, like, in real life, these kind of areas, like if we're talking about rain and just weathering kind of, like having an effect on things, for most materials, you're going to see more damage that's actually done because, these areas are actually like protruding out, right? Water's going to hit this, things are going to fall off. In reality, like a lot more of this probably should be, kind of like degraded for how old this is actually supposed to be. But because this is fantasy, because this is, like my own world building project, I'm just going to kind of throw this out for the lore and say that these materials are very durable and, sturdy from this ancient civilization that was building this, now kind of destroyed and partially submerged structure. So you're going to see more of the kind of pre-existing form as is than what you would typically see for, like, I don't know, some concrete structure that's just been like exposed to weather and a forest for so long. And yeah, Yak of Art, this is following the themes. I'm actually on day 2. I say day 2, this is like day 4, probably, of me working on stuff, but the theme for this one is Discover. It's Discover or it's Discovery. And so I'm just going to do like a quick kind of pan out really quickly of what's going on. In this composition, right, we've got this ancient ruin kind of, like civilization or remnants of a civilization, specifically from the region of Moana and Aquas, which is one of the water magic based regions of the book. And the main character, or I guess like the subject, but who happens to be the main character in this composition, he's discovering this tower. So, ta-da, he's like discovering something. And that's kind of how I'm like trying to fit this in, right? Like I'm trying to fit in stuff for my world building project, stuff for my book, stuff into like Jake Parker's Inktober, but then also I'm thinking about trying to like squeeze in some Trenchtober as well too, which is something that Monster Garden, another like really big world building YouTuber, started too for the month of October. So we're gonna see. Like I'm not promising to live up to all of that. There's gonna be like a lot of stuff to try to fit in, but if I can fit it in where I can fit it in, then that's what I'm gonna try to do. If I can't, then I'll just stick to the Inktober themes and try to go from there. So yeah. And this is Restream. I don't know if Restream is restreaming to all the other streams that's supposed to be streaming to. I've been having some issues with like Instagram and like social media stuff, but yeah, still trying to kind of work out the kinks and get things up and running with what I've got available to me. And thank you very much for the thoughts, Yakavart. I'm glad that you like it. This or that, you know, this tower, I don't have a timeline just yet on how old it is. I know that, like, you know, as the world builder, kind of speaking about lore and things of that nature for this world, this region within Animus, all I can say at the moment is that this is ancient. This tower predates a lot of the structures that currently exist in this region by probably at least, this is me like formulating lore in real time, I'm gonna say at least 1500 years minimum, but probably older. Again, don't quote me, that might get retconned. But again, this is from an ancient civilization that lived in the region prior to you know, some of the more colonial residents, and some of the remnants of the ancient civilization still do live there. You know, they have their own lifestyle and things of that nature, but yeah, this belongs to one of those tribes. I can say that, you know, of those tribes, it was comprised of predominantly Novo, the human species that has an affinity with nature and, you know, that are able to take on various kind of animal-like forms, like druids. Basically, they're my universe's equivalent of druids. So yeah, that's kind of what that is. And you know what, Yakavart, I finished, for the backpack one, yeah, I finished that one in stream, or at least like 90% of it. What I'm trying to do is finish like a good kind of like passing grade score of these for each stream. I think for yesterday's, I'm going to safely say that I only got like 70%. Maybe, yeah, like 70% of this, maybe 75 complete, but to be perfectly honest, everybody watching, like, there are some moments where, like, I get the basic shapes captured in my streams, but then I need to, like, take these moments and, like, sit down like a hermit and just kind of reflect on, like, okay, what is it that I'm trying to do and why? And once I get those moments, like, in private, I can start throwing on details like this, because I think that for everybody that's watched this last kind of, like, you know, making of, I have details here, but not like this. And so now, with a little bit of quiet time, I've been able to kind of get to where I'm at right here. But the intent, for all of those who are watching who, you know, are kind of recently jumping into the stream, the intent for this stream is to not only put on the contours and to finish up all the inking for this, but I want to start the process of like capturing this digitally, like just taking a picture. I'm going to take a picture of this, I'm going to put it into Photoshop, I'm going to start digitally painting as well, so you guys get to see color. Hopefully you guys get to see color getting added to this in real time in the stream once I'm finished with the nitty-gritty details of contouring all of this. And so far, I've set a personal goal to try to get the contouring done in, if I'm lucky, like half an hour, which may or may not happen. But it's just like a personal goalpost that I'm trying to reach. So we're gonna see. But so far, good progress is being made. Good question. Yeah, the music that I'm playing in the back, this is apparently, I'm gonna put this in, air quotes. This is royalty-free, copyright-free music. And so far, like I haven't used this playlist, the one that I'm playing like right now, in my previous videos. This is like a new one that I kind of added to it. So I'm gonna see if it gets a copyright, notice or not. I know that for some of the other videos, most of the music that's playing in the background, like it is right now, has actually been royalty-free. It's been copyright-free. So I haven't had many issues. I've had a few things kind of pop up where it's like a copyright notice will say like, hey, this song is, and we'll say the name and who the artist is by. But what I've done is I've just kind of like had YouTube, or I've gone back and like had YouTube remove a portion of that song from the video and kind of tweak it that way. But yeah, I hope that that's not like a situation for today's stream. We're gonna see. Alright, so that rock face is coming along. We're gonna like just put on some of that right there. And these vines, ooh, I might need to switch to a different pin, something that's not as thick as this. I could still probably swing it, but we're gonna see. Just don't want to like cross contours, like butcher the kind of delicate line work over there with something that might be too thick. I might be good, but like I could also just be a little skywid for trying to use this to map all of that. And, I was talking about this earlier. You guys don't see it. I'm going to kind of like jump in and kind of do a quick, this is terrible, zoom in on what I'm talking about. One day I'll get the camera on the spot. Yeah, okay. This little mark that I start making right here, before I continue, you can see how this kind of like sketch mark is going in that general direction, right? And it's following the same direction as the horizon over here, which is cool. But I want to create something that's going to create a little bit of juxtaposition when it comes to where the eye is kind of following. I want this section to be a little bit of a shock, so to speak. And what I mean by that is that this is a rock structure that's protruding from the water. And, it could follow the water, but if this is something that's actually kind of coming out more like a twisted angle, then that line doesn't necessarily need to be perfectly straight or perfectly parallel with the horizon line. Like it can, it's totally fine. But for what I'm thinking about, I'm gonna do something like that. There we go. That looks like it's super tiny, very insignificant potentially, but it's those small interruptions, visually when you're reading the composition from left to right, that help to contribute to that dynamicism of an environment. It kind of helps to give it more, just diversity, right? When it comes to like what you're looking at, it feels more realistic sometimes, too, more three-dimensional. And yeah, Yakovar, I just saw your comment. Yeah, these are vines, those rope-looking things. Gonna try to get this sail in a nice spot. Still trying to race against that timer. We're gonna see what happens. should have like actually captured a timer on the screen somewhere, but not so important. I bet you it's probably already been like 30 minutes, but that's also okay too. Alright. Guys, I'm just gonna say this, like, I'm super stoked to, just, like, bring this into existence. I'm not trying to say that to, like, toot any horns. I know that, you know, this is a work in progress, but something that brings me a lot of satisfaction with my work is just the ability to kind of realize it into just some tangible medium. And you know, like for this one, even though this is just like a illustration, it's got a very kind of intentional three-dimensionality to just like the environment itself that's being represented within. So I'm going to talk about this. I just pulled out another pin. We've got two. This is the one that I'm using for kind of these lines over here. This one, which is actually a number one. Dude, that glare is just not going to focus on that, which is it's fine. This is a skinnier pin. I'm going to use this for these lines over here and some of the smaller details. Yak of Art, I'm taking a look at your comments with the terminology here. I'm gonna write these down and memorize them. And ambient occlusion. That's something I need to. I'm gonna like say that 5 times fast. Ambient occlusion. Okay, but that's cool. I need to actually figure out what these all mean when I get a chance. And it's funny, right? Like, I'm sure that a lot of those, I could be wrong, but, you know, maybe they've got like a lot of relevance and kind of just like presence in programs like Blender and, you know, a lot of 3D modeling stuff. I feel like there's a really cool overlap when it comes to like this type of terminology and actually translating that into like a 2D piece of art. Like, we may use different verbiage, and I say we more so talking about just like your average person on the street who's an artist, traditional artist, I mean, and yet, you know, I feel as though a lot of those same principles that you will use in things like 3D modeling software programs have such an important role when it comes to kind of interacting with and understanding how those just play around with environments that you're trying to create or design or, you know, just craft. So, similar language, different dialect, but I think a lot of those interactions can serve to teach a lot of people who are like me, you know, doing this in kind of this 2D traditional craft. I'm gonna switch back to this guy, just because I can lay down ink faster with this type of contour. I'm not going to be too shy about that. I'm just going to kind of go ahead, keep that motion consistent. And that is our top of the sail. I'm going to come back and kind of work on outlining this portion here, just like that. And so this is one of the fun parts, right? I was talking about the difference in line thickness, and because this is a sail, it's not going to be super heavy with regard to you know, that contour. The reason why is it's a thin piece of fabric. You don't want to make it like too overbearing compositionally, but I do want to add just like a little bit of extra thickness with 2 C's. No, not really. A little bit of extra thickness to this line over here, just so that it can stand out enough from the wave splash that's happening here and right here. You're going to see that I'm going to make these thinner in a second. Right there. And right when they come to those points, I want them to be very sharp. Yeah, Kafar, yeah, that's that's cool. I'm gonna look them up actually as soon as I get the chance to. Maybe if I'm lucky, I could do a quick search before opening up Photoshop once this portion of my drawing is complete. And just a quick kind of status check, progress check. Let's take a look. We've got this region here from the bottom right. We've got this cloud up here. We've got a lot of this area over here already outlined, which is fantastic. We've got a few other things at the top that, you know, still need some love, like this seabird over here. As a matter of fact, since I'm talking about it now, I'm gonna go ahead and give that some extra life. And you'll notice that I've kept the shapes pretty basic for what's going on here. Like, this is a seabird, but you know, it's just kind of like triangles and angles and things of that nature. And it goes back to that principle that I was talking about with my drawing style. Like, one of my main focuses with my art is that notion of communication. You know, what am I communicating to the viewer? And in terms of priority, this seabird really serves as a nice kind of visual accent to the rest of the composition. It's not the main subject, and because it's not going to get as much detail as it would if it were. And that allows the viewer just enough focus, right, on some of the subject matter that's actually a bit more relevant to the narrative I'm trying to tell, without as many distractions. And I just realized that I'm sketching this in and you guys probably can barely see it because of how I'm holding the tablet. So I'm just going to move that back like this, and voila, seabird captured. I am using a range of different pens. I could not tell you what every single size is, but I know that this one is a 08. The other one for the vines is a number 1. So really just whatever can kind of put on just like, you know, the right amount of thickness, the right amount of ink that I'm looking for based on the tip. I probably should like get more familiar with which ones do what, like just, I don't know, off of name eventually. But I'm a Neanderthal, so I don't keep up with it like I should. Yeah. Clouds. Now for the fun part. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to capture this bridge, that rope bridge, with this one here. This is the number 1, like I was talking about earlier. And that's just going to put on that very delicate touch that I need for this, without the risk of making it too overbearing either. It just needs to do the job of telling the story that there's a bridge right there, without accidentally conflating it for being something else. And I think that it's doing exactly what I wanted it to do. And because this bridge, I'm just going to kind of talk about like the actual landscape as well too, and what's going on. I've been focusing a lot on the technique and not so much on the lore, or at least, you know, like the descriptions on like everything in here. So I'm gonna shift gears and talk about that. This bridge is really old, as you can tell. A lot of the things in here are really old, and that's done intentionally because I want the theme to effectively explain discovery. Like if you're watching an Indiana Jones movie and you find, you know, the Temple of the Lost Ark, I kind of want this to be kind of like that introduction, so to speak. In terms of these specific events of my story, or more specifically the events within my world building project and the story that's in my world building project that focuses on the main character, I'm not going to... This probably won't be like canon inside of the events of the story. As a matter of fact, for book 1, the book that I've been writing that, you know, takes place within my world building project, the main character, who's the guy on the wind sail, he doesn't actually travel to this location, not in book 1. But that doesn't mean that he wouldn't revisit. So what we're looking at isn't necessarily canon for the events of the first story in my series, but that's okay. On to things that are more exciting. Everything that we're looking at in terms of wildlife is canon. We don't get a good look at as many creatures, monsters, etc. here, but we do have a look at a few if you're carefully kind of, you know, perusing the composition here. And I'll show you what I mean. If you see that thing over there, it kind of looks like a fish. And that's because it is. We have, in my universe, many creatures that exist within our world, as well as not. For example, we have seabirds, like seagulls and things of that nature. But we also have sky fish. Fish that are capable of not only surfacing above the water, but flying effortlessly through the air. These creatures, like many of the creatures within the world of Animus, are capable of using magic, and they very much do with much of their kind of regular life, as in through locomotion and hunting. Specifically, they utilize wind magic and water magic, basic spells in that art. And so that's kind of how they do what they do above water. And typically at night, they will return to the ocean. So more so kind of daytime, kind of hunter-gatherers, so to speak. They're very docile overall. And then at night, they kind of return back to the waters to nest and to take shelter in areas that are safer for them. I'm trying to think about other monsters that I've got in this. I don't think there are many more. There would definitely be plenty inside of here. But in terms of what we're looking at right now, this is a pretty docile and chill beach. And not every monster in spirit is something that is aggressive within this world. So it really just depends on where you are and what you're doing in terms of your personal safety and maintaining that. I think one of the prompts is guidebook for Inktober for this year. I'm thinking about a way to maybe incorporate a bestiary. I'm going to die on that hill mispronouncing that name. And I might be able to show something that's maybe a little bit more representative of the other animal life that exists here. And this or that, yes, you can eat the skyfish, depending on what species, but most are, pretty okay to eat. I haven't really thought about what they would taste like. I would imagine kind of like a very good tasting cod, perhaps, but yeah, they are, for those who live in these regions, they've served as a valuable resource for multiple purposes, including, like food as well too, but also just other things like pest control, as they are, mostly like insectivores. They do eat a lot of, insects that keep some of the populations down. And yeah, I don't know how that would taste. It's a very good question. That just made me a little hungry in a weird way. So, thank you, this or that. Okay, so this sail, this is coming along. Again, I'm using this kind of thicker pin here just to kind of maintain the contrast ratio that I want when I upload this into my computer, but also just in general. Like this is giving me some good visual information that's clearly distinguishing, what parts of what belong where on this craft. And I just have to say, like, I really do love this portion of the process. It's just really bringing it into life, really kind of solidifying it into existence. That's how I feel, at least. And it's just like an overall, like, feel good kind of moment. So, yeah. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Almost done. So let me get these mountainsides. I'm gonna kind of quickly put those in right there. Simple, rough line work. Details what it needs to do. And for this bridge over here, like you guys might have guessed, go back with this pin over here and just kind of put on those details. Just like that. We've got some suspensions over here, just they're meant to hold it in place, and a lot of these have kind of deteriorated over time. You could still walk across this, but whether or not you'll make it to the other side in one piece is kind of debatable. Worth a shot, though. Devon, thank you. I am glad that's looking good. Happy to hear it. Yeah, this is almost at a spot of completion for the outline work. It's getting there. And Devon, I was telling some of the other viewers that, once I get this in a spot of completion with the line work, I'm going to try to get this uploaded into Photoshop tonight on stream and start with the color process of this. And so there's something I kind of want to talk about with that. This, as a composition, is kinda big. And when talking about that, this is like a landscape, obviously. And, you know, with that, I've been trying to, like, I've been trying to nail down the technique that works best for me when it comes to coloring, but in particular, coloring landscapes. And so, one thing that I've found that just kind of feels a little natural is this notion of using gradation in some areas, in like a limited extent, but in a way to where I'm able to kind of capture like foliage or, you know, like, I don't know, texture detail that's a little bit more difficult to catch if it were just flat. And I'm probably going to try my luck at that technique again tonight. I used it in my fairies video. I was talking about this in the last stream, and I'm going to see how that compares, how that fares in this one. Hopefully it does well. And Devon, that's a good question. Is it going to be a late night stream? I don't want it to be too late. It's 9 o'clock almost, 9 o'clock EST. So I'm going to say that hopefully by 10, maybe, 10, maybe 10, I'm at a spot in which it's at like a good stopping point. It's going to be my goal. Can't make any promises, but yeah, we're just going to see where it goes. This is that kind of next piece of that support beam for this wind sail. That's coming in pretty okay. For this one, because I want the wind sail to be kind of translucent, not quite fully opaque, not quite fully transparent, I'm gonna use a thin pin to, you know, do what I'm doing right there. Giving enough information about that contour for the shape without fully connecting the dots or connecting the lines. A midnight stream would be pretty cool, like just for the heck of it. I mean, kind of depends on where and, sorry, where, what am I talking about? Depends on when and how busy my week is, but we'll see. One day maybe, for those of you who can't sleep, I'll talk you to sleep while I make art. See how that goes. Alright guys, so check this out. I am at a pretty good spot to where I'm almost done. We're looking at like maybe a good, I'm gonna say like 80% for this contour work. So now I've got all of this that needs to be done. Water, splashing effects, the subject over here, our traveler, Kinniks. So here we go, we're just gonna jump in. And you'll notice that what I'm doing is I'm keeping these lines still, you know, pretty tame, not super thick. And that's mostly because this is water, and as such, as it splashes, when light is reflecting off of it, I don't want there to be a potential, how can I say, miscommunication that there's a lot of shadow within this section. And what I mean by that is that if the lines are too thick, then the perception of, you know, this actually being a thin, you know, just liquid, fluid like water is, that illusion might kind of disappear because of that. And I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to keep this thickness, you know, kind of at this point here. It's kind of fitting with regard to the rest of the environment going on. And what I will do now is kind of capture these droplets over here in a similar light. And what I'm also going to do is to kind of imply that there's motion in this, just by having some of these edges, these contours for the droplets kind of trail off in the direction of the focal point here. All of these, right, are kind of leading in a direction that's somewhat akin to what's going on over here. That's really important because it maintains the perception of motion, where everything is coming from. And again, I'll just kind of give this kind of call to, I couldn't think of the word, sorry guys, I was blanking out. This detail here, this attention to detail, and call this out. Everything isn't 100% accurate when it comes to where they should be staged. You know, in terms of physics, right? Like on this composition, it's accurate, maybe more of like a 90%. But that's okay because of the fact that the main purpose is conveying to the user, to the viewer. Oh my gosh, my UX brain is switching on. Conveying to the viewer what's going on. And we've got this high intensity travel scene in which, you know, this traveler is partaking in. And we want the motion to be the kind of top priority, at least with that portion of this narrative. Okay, and here we go. I'm about to start putting on the line work for Kinix here. I'm going to keep this very simple. And what I mean by that is that I've got the shapes for the character just really carved out in these simple geometric blocks. And that's intentional. Because again, as important as the traveler is in this composition, the composition in its entirety has more importance than the traveler in this context. And so we don't want anything that's going to be too complex, too busy in one region, that's going to attribute to any confusion or just distraction in what's going on. So it's kind of like a middle ground between the silhouette and an actual subject. And as I get closer to some of these details at, like, you know, the head and upper body of Kinix, I don't want the line work to be too thick. I actually want it to be a little bit thinner than what's going on here, and so that's why I'm switching over to this other pin. And that's going to capture exactly that. Just like this. And what's going to happen next is I'll do some light cleanup work. I'm going to end up erasing some of the graphite regions in some areas, not many, of the character here. And that's just going to, again, just reaffirm and kind of just concretize like what's what and where in the subject matter here. Same for this arm. You know, I want that to be, I want these contours to be thin, not too thick. And thankfully, I can say that I'm pretty satisfied with some of the results that are going on here. So we've got that. Can make that a little bit more contrasty. Connecting these dots. And now, going in for the collar detail here. That's going to wrap around. Shoulder. I'm actually really excited to put this into the computer in a second. Same thing for the bag strap. I said bag, but in actuality this is a sword sheath and a sword. And that's still coming around. I might actually create a little bit more contrast over here, specifically between what's going on with the shirt and the sheath itself. So very subtle, but just enough to make a difference. And this is really going to pop off once I get to the top of the character and start adding the lines and details to him there. You'll see. Now just putting on some more of the detail work, the contours on the sword hilt right there. The handle. It's already starting to take shape. Now the goggles right here. Yak of Art, I don't know, actually. I was thinking about until maybe 10 p.m. But however long I kind of, feel like it, whenever I kind of feel like it's time to hop off, I will. I've got some things that I need to do in the AM, so probably won't stay on for like a super long time tonight. But I still have time. I'm still gonna, keep this up. So yeah, check this out. Like, we're already getting this contrast over here on Kinex's head. And I'm interchanging the words here, right? Like, this is a traveler who's currently en route to his destination over here, but this traveler also happens to be the main character of my book that I'm writing. And so that's why I'm calling him Kinex, because that is his name. Thank you, Hassan. Thank you. Welcome to the stream. Happy to have you on. Alright, so this is in like a happier spot. Check that out. So we've got a lot of this kind of detailed already. Enough to at least convey that this is a person who's moving there, in that direction. That's all I want. Enough to where, like, well, I take that back. Like, I want him to encapsulate that iconic silhouette of my main character, and I'd say that that's kind of done. Except for the shoes over here, which I'm going to work on and finish up right now. And you'll notice I'm still using the thinner pin. If I really want to, I can go back and use the thicker one, but I don't think it's necessary for what I'm trying to illustrate here. I think that this will get the job done. And it looks like it is. And I'll probably just go as far as, using it to get the rest of the watercraft depicted too. Just like that. We've got the kind of exhaust over here. going to switch back to the other pin, get this edge captured right here, just like that, and then down like this. With that nice clean point right there. Could be a little bit better, but I'm not going to be a stickler about it too much. That's cool. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. But I still need to get this chord captured, so I'm going to do that. Bringing it down to where our traveler can maintain his grip on it. Just like that. Goes into his hand. And then the outside of this still needs a little bit of attention. Guys, we're like 90% done with the line work for this. Maybe even more. It's really close. Thank you so much, Hassan. Yeah, I'm glad you think so. That was the intent. But yeah, it's still coming along. Almost there. Getting close. Welcome, Isopodian Commonwealth! No, thank you. Thank you for hopping in. Glad you think it looks cool. And I said that I'm about 90% done with this. Which is still pretty accurate, I think. But there's an important detail that's still missing. I'm going to show you guys what I mean. I was talking about motion earlier, and you'll see that I'm going to like put this right here. Yeah, there we go. Right here in the mid-ground, we've got these lines, these action lines, kind of, just coming in towards us, towards the viewer. I don't want to lose these in the, like just the detailing of the color work for this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm using my skinny pen to capture that motion, capture those lines to where they are not going to get smeared, nothing's going to happen to them when I'm moving this, just a sheet of paper or whatever it is around, like these things happen, basically. And so I'm not going to stray off too much from what I've already captured with the graphite. Just want to make sure that I'm just kind of tracing it, basically. And these are all effects that we've seen in like some of our favorite anime before. I just want to make sure that this is doing what it needs to do right there. I feel like it is. And we are at like a 95% completion with this. I need to figure out what's going to happen right here. That's the focal point. For those of you who were in on the last stream, I was talking about, the focal point of the composition. And it started off literally with an X. That was the beginning of this composition. It was just like an X on a big white space. I don't know what I want this to be. I was thinking about a outpost that's separate. I think I'm still going to keep it that way. I think it's going to be a shrine. And I need to figure out what that's going to look like. There's a location in a video game that, I recall playing from my childhood. That video game is Shadow of the Colossus, which originally came out on the PlayStation 2. And one of the areas that kind of gave me, at least internally, kind of privately, some inspiration as to what this could be, was a shrine that existed right in the middle of a lake before you fought this, like, you know, lightning, plasma, bolt shooting Colossus. And I kind of want this to resemble that to a certain extent. So this is my shot at it. I'm going to kind of start putting some lines on right here. Just like that. And this will be over the horizon. So it's literally going to kind of intersect that horizon line right there. And I'm going to give this a low hanging roof, but a roof nonetheless. That's going to start right here. Okay. And maybe just one more elevation for it. It's like a thing right there, something right there, and finally that. So just erasing, doing some light eraser work. And because of how small this is, we're going to need surgical precision to get this captured in illustration. And I think that what I'm going to do with that is probably just do a thing over here. I'm actually going to change the shape on this ever so slightly. And just mirror that over here. Okay. It's looking good. And same thing for the top. Alright, watchers, don't breathe too hard. Okay. Very delicate work. And one more. Okay. Khalas, finished, c'est la vie. That is done. We have a shrine. And we have our destination for our main character's trip. Guys, we're at a spot right now to where, as promised, I'm going to get ready to upload this into Photoshop. And so what I need for that to happen is just a moment for me to kind of step away. I say step away, I'm still going to be on camera, but to grab my cell phone, which is off screen, to take a nice picture of this before uploading it to my computer that I'm streaming on. So, this is just going to be a little moment of prep time. I'm going to keep this on screen for you all to look at in the meantime, as best as I can. I think that's looking pretty good. Maybe. I'm happy with it. I'm going to take this and use these to grab a nice picture, but not before cleaning off my cameras. Alright. Alright, unlocking my phone. Alright, we're gonna get to the camera feature here. To be honest, the lighting is pretty good from my angle, I think. Or was pretty good. Alright, I'm gonna move this into the light right there for the... Yeah. And zooming out, zooming out. Probably look really goofy right now just with the way I'm taking the shot. think that's pretty good. I'm gonna try one more angle. One second. This is gonna get a little bright for a second, guys. This is what happens when you don't have a scanner ready to use. Just have to do it the bootleg way. Well, it gets the job done. Okay. Let's take a look. Yeah. I think that'll get the job done. So, let's try one more thing. Yeah, the shadows, that's always kind of a challenge. I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna take this on the floor. So enjoy a nice view of my carpet for just 1 second. And I'm gonna get this right here. Alright, that's actually a really good shot. That's one. And that's two. Alright guys, thank you for patiently waiting for that portion of the stream to wrap up. Now comes for the fun part, getting this cropped out and then uploaded into my computer, like I mentioned. And that's actually, it's kind of part of my regular process, as very scrappy as it is, but it goes a very long way, as I think you guys are about to see. So I'm going to save this. I think that that's a pretty good representation of what I just got finished doing. Save that there. And I'm going to rotate this to the right position. I'm going to adjust the settings, and this is all just using, you know, Samsung's, yeah, just like native features for photo editing and whatnot. There's another tool that I like to use called Snapseed by Google. That goes a very long way too. But this is all I need for getting the job done. Yakovar, thank you so much. I'm happy. We're gonna see how this looks digitally in a second. And yeah, gotta get this for the gram as well too. I'll take the money shots in a little bit. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good layout so far. So now I'm going to share this. Going to put this onto my storage folder, raw photos, uploading it there. And now I'm going to go ahead and download this. So this is a step-by-step process, not one that should take too long. The next step is just going to be downloading and then dropping it into Photoshop. Okay. So it looks like it just came through. Downloading it there. I'd share my screen if I didn't have all of my private, confidential information on it. So you guys just have to believe that that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm opening up Photoshop as we speak. And now we wait for the screen to buffer. I'm gonna put my microphone over there for a second. It's looking like it's almost there. Any moment now. I miss having my other laptop. The processing speed is a bit faster, but this one's still getting the job done. Just takes a few seconds longer. Alright, we have liftoff, guys. Photoshop is up and running. Almost up and running. Now it's up and running. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new file. I'm actually going to open something from my downloads here. And in a second, what I'll do is turn on my other display so that you guys can see the file. Okay, so I think you guys can see my other screen over here. I'm going to drag Photoshop, put that into it. Got like a partial Photoshop thing going on. That's there. Now that's there. Just like magic. This was intense. I agree, Devon. Try to get my seat readjusted. Bear with me for a second. Busy, busy. Welcome to the world of digital drawing once again. So guys, I've got what I need right here from my traditional sketch onto the digital, and now what I'm going to actually do is go ahead and duplicate this layer. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of like make some light tweaks to a few things, specifically with the kind of just capture itself. And what I mean by that is that this is kind of a little too much saturation going on over there. So I'm just going to kind of like brighten that up so that it fits the tonality of the rest of the composition. Or gets close to it, at least. And I think that that's already a lot better. Just like that. That's all I want. And so we've got this nice kind of line work, you know, set up, and yeah, like we can start going in on it. And so, you know, just kind of doing a quick time check. It is it's 9:23 right now. And I think I probably spent like a good almost hour working on doing the actual line work traditionally. And so now I'm at a good spot to where, even though it's been a little bit longer than what I want it to be, I can still work on the illustrations. And I said 9 o'clock. It's it is sorry, 9:20 something EST. For some of us, it's 6 p.m. EST. PST, guys. It's been a day. It's been a stream. So I need to figure out what type of colors I'm going to use for this. So there are going to be a lot of blues. Let's jump into that. I've got my layers. I've got my. I'm missing a few things here. My layout seems to be a little funky. I don't know why. Let's try getting the rest of the color palette into place. Very strange. Let's see, we need to get that's there, but the toggle tool isn't. Edit toolbar, please. You guys get to watch the logistics behind setting up Photoshop. Paint bucket tool, that's not what I want. I'm looking for the color picker tool. Well, that is a little inconvenient. Gotta love the kind of unexpected challenges that come into this. Keeps you on your feet. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of, wing it. I'm gonna use this version of the color picker. Not my preference. I kind of like having the quick access to the, sorry guys, I'm checking something on here. My mic audio is doubled. Let's fix that. Let's see why. Is it still double now? I don't think I changed anything. Yeah, guys, let me know if the mic is just super loud for whatever reason. So far it seems like it's been okay on my end. But I don't know. Let me know. In the meantime, I'm going to get back to this. And I was talking about something earlier. I was talking about this kind of habit that I've been getting into of using feathered brushes to put on paint and things of that nature for my art. And it's something that I'm going to revisit again right now, but not before finding the right type of overlay I want for the line work. And I'm thinking I think I'm literally just going to use overlay for now. I'm going to go ahead and start putting on some of the basic beginnings of this, but even overlay seems a little too, how can I say, undersaturated. So maybe linear burn. It's too dark, darker color. You know, one thing that I've actually been trying to get better at is this notion of trying to paint digitally, but to also talk about my work at the same time. And, you know, part of this is a very experimental process for me still. It's like, when I start my illustration work, it's really, yeah, it's just really kind of like an experimental process. And so, like, that color looks okay, but then, maybe what I can do is brighten up the background here. And I'm going to make sure that that's going to give me more of a bright kind of background like that. Bring that down a little bit. And then, yeah, Yakavart, you're right. I've got this on multiply right now, and I think that that's in a good spot. I'm happy with, you know, just kind of where that's at, but I'm going to change the color for this. And I'm going to make that a brighter blue. So this is going to be for the sky. And so as such, it should be, you know, fitting for a sky's hue. And it seems as though some of my windows and panels are popping up on different windows. So it's just going to take me a little bit of getting used to kind of make sure that I'm tracing those in the right spots, tracking them in the right spots. I think I'm getting the hang of it right now. This is a new setup. I'm happy to kind of show you guys how things are hiccuping behind the scenes and then kind of solving those in real time. So thank you everyone for the patience. But this is kind of the look for the sky that I want right now. And what I'm going to do is kind of gradually put on some more layers of brightness. And that's going to look a little bit like this. We're going to have, let's see, this area be a bit brighter than the other. Not like this. Use a different brush. And a different technique. You see, that's on multiply. That's going to make that darker, of course. Let's see. I'm going to switch this around. Duplicate. Layer. And I'm going to move this above. I'm going to change... I'm going to change this to be more of a color burn, I think. That feels alright. And get that a bit bigger. Change that from multiply to probably a normal. And then try to get the brush size a little bit larger than 90. I think that that's a good size for what's going on over there. Light's going to be below the landscape, so we're going to get something a bit like that. And guys, I'm just still working on the, the sky aspect of this, as you can see. I think once I introduce the light sources, it's really going to jump out in the way that I'm envisioning it. Switching this layer to a normal definitely kind of brightens this up a lot more, and I'm happy about that. So I'm going to kind of stick with that method right there. I'm going to keep these organized in a folder called Sky and build on it that way. And yeah, Yak of Art, it's not super new. I haven't shown it a whole lot, I think just in general. I'm actually kind of dusting the cobwebs off of this, but this is a UG tablet. This is the UG 1200, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, this is kind of what I'm using as my loaner tool until I get a new, until my new laptop gets fixed. So I'm using my old laptop and this loaner tool to kind of get things done in the meantime. So yeah. Okay, so I like that. I'm going to end up duplicating this. As soon as I get some of the functions working on this pin correctly. Right click. Right click is not right clicking. Well, it means I gotta use the old-fashioned way and duplicate that. So I just merged that together, and what that's going to do is allow me to edit everything at once at the same time. So I'm going to start erasing some of this. Actually, hold on. I'm going to keep some of this information here. Not all of it, but just enough to where it's going to have some importance in a little bit, which you'll see soon. Because this layer exists in the background, and when I'm talking about the layer, I'm talking about the mountainsides, there's going to be a bit of ambient lighting that's cast from the sky, and so because of that, I kind of want to keep some of the color hues that it has and you'll see why once I start putting colors on them. For the foreground, it's a little bit of a different story. I can go ahead and kind of erase a lot more over here and still use ambient lighting, but to a different effect. And from a different source as well too. I can still use the sky, but there are other things like the water around that's going to cast light onto it also. So for this whole process, you're going to see me jumping around all over the place. And that is intended, because that is part of my process. I tend to jump around and put on detail that feels right, that feels like it's in the moment. And from there, I just kind of start to build. So we've got more of that sky detail over there. And I can start putting on some things for the clouds here. And so this is where I tend to switch brushes a little bit. Like I can keep this as a feathered brush, or I can make it a hard brush. And in this case, I'm going to make it hard versus feathered. And that's going to allow me to keep more control over the edge work for this shape here. What I'm actually going to do is end up turning down the opacity on that just a little bit. And come back and put this in, as you can see. And you can see that nice kind of cutout shape of that cloud there. I'm going to zoom in. Oh, I thought I could move it. One thing that I'm still trying to get the hang of here, because I think that the pin might not be as responsive as it should be sometimes, it's just the shortcut keys and what does what. Like as you can see, I'm kind of like pressing one button. It's not really letting me drag this the way how it's supposed to be dragged. So yep, I'm going to use the keyboard in the meantime for those things and get the job done that way. And you can just kind of, like I can feel the control for this, and it just feels a lot, just easier to use by using the hard brush instead of the soft for these contours. Same thing for this. Guys, I'm going to check something. It seems like there is some really bad lag over here. Just want to see what's causing that. Close out Discord. Okay. Hopefully that helps out a little bit. Alright, back to the scheduled broadcasting here. So, more detail here, and I'm just gonna like speed this up. One thing that I've kind of done with my technique sometimes is I'll use what's called it's subtractive creation, if I'm not mistaken. I might be butchering the terminology, but anyway, what that means is you'll throw color into places to make kind of like what's meant to be a shape, and you will start to erase as though you're chiseling away at a sculpture. And that gets like the overall area covered that needs to be covered for just whatever it is that you're drawing, and then from there you can just go ahead and detail away with your eraser by chiseling it out, basically. Just like this. If I can just swing that a bit. And this is where the feather brush is actually going to come in handy. Let's see, the feathered eraser, I mean. So that is what I'm looking for right there. And the reason why I'm using this is so that there's a little bit of the sky still showing through the cloud. And that's just to imply the, you know, partially translucent nature of this here, instead of something that's perfectly opaque. It gives you a little bit more flexibility, you know, for editing and kind of overstepping the boundaries with the contour work. But the payoff is that you get something that can become a little bit more of a natural looking shape or object or subject because of it. I think what I need to do is come back and add some detail for that cloud shadow, and that is going to be something that's going to be more of a blue. Just going to borrow from some of these colors over here. I'm going to make it a little bit less saturated, a little bit darker. And the reason why is because I want to introduce some contrast in this composition in a way to where it's still in the same ballpark, it's still in the same theme of the environment around it, but it's different just enough to where visually, you know, you're getting something that's coming off the page. You take a look at the comment section. I think I've been neglecting it. That's looking pretty good. That's more the direction that I'm wanting it to move in. So that's kind of what I meant about the contrast. It's borrowing from the colors in the background, but as I said before, less saturation on the blues that are being used. But still, you've got that darker tone that's going to jump out from the predominantly sky blue background. Go back to feathering this. Just like that. Not so much like that. That's a little too much. And then, here we have it. So that is our super sculpty cloud, as I'll call it. Definitely taking more of that sculptural, approach, with some intentionality with that as well too. And the mountainsides, those are going to be the next things that I kind of want to block out here. So I'm going to group this as well. I'm going to call that, I'm just going to call this clouds. I'm going to make this section dedicated for clouds, like the name suggests. And what I'm going to do now is work on this next layer over here which is going to be beneath the clouds, but still above the sky layer, and that's going to be for the mountains. And so these hillsides are going to be a nice kind of rolling hillside green sort of hue. This landscape is meant to be very vibrant, very colorful, and so this is just one of those other areas where you're going to see that kind of shine through. And because this is going to be located more so in the background, you know, this is going to be a little bit lighter than it is darker. So instead of sticking with that green that we see over there, or this one that you see over here, I'm going to brighten that up ever so slightly and just desaturate it like that. So that color is a pretty comfortable hue for me. And I'm going to show you what that looks like here. I'm going to start... Oh, I lied. That's way too bright. Let's desaturate that some more, guys. Almost there. Getting closer. Still very bright. Make sure we're on the right layer. Let's see what's going on here. It's like highlighter green. Let's darken that a little bit. There we go. That's better. Thanks, Yakovar. Yeah, it's I'm trying to find a way to, especially, you know, like in a lot of my style, but finding that balance of like soft and sharp. That's something that's still a challenge, but that's definitely kind of the aim for a lot of what I'm doing. So the clouds are supposed to look like that. They're supposed to be this kind of like, you know, sharp shape, but you know, the features of them are supposed to be soft, as you can see in like the texture. And even for these hillsides, which we're about to kind of get a closer look at in a second, but I'm going for a similar thing. Because these are further back in the background, we're going to have, you know, more of these blues kind of take shape, but what's missing, which is really important to include, is the ambient lighting without it looking as though it's literally the same exact lighting as the sky. So we're going to borrow from some of those themes, but it's not going to be kind of copied verbatim. And what I mean by that is, you know, this is a lighter kind of section of the skyscape, and that's kind of the area, the gradation that's closer to the ground here, or the mountains, or the, you know, just like terrestrial terrain. And so I'm going to try to find something that's kind of like an in-between for that blue and the actual green itself. I'm gonna see how this looks. This could look horrible, but this is kind of where I'm trying to experiment with first. That's good. That's too bright. A little too heavy as well. Like, this needs to be brought down, and how powerful that's coming off. And that's going to be like a good 50-something% of what it actually is to capture that light. And one of the other things about my style that, you know, I want to incorporate in this is the kind of chiseled, you know, cutout effect that I have for a lot of the detail work. And what's going to happen is this: like, I'm going to end up duplicating this layer, and then I'm going to start cutting away at some of the kind of inner features of it. So getting rid of this, going to the eraser, and seeing what I can do with you know, just like the shapes itself on the inside. And as a matter of fact, I might keep it as it is for this, but then on the next layer that I put on top of it, we're going to see a few kind of deviations of you know, like how things are cut out and where and why. So because this is in the background, my intent is to not make this super detailed in comparison to the rest of the foreground. By the way, I just realized something, guys. I need to share this display with you all, so you can see this kind of, you know, happening on one plane. Silly me, I meant to turn that on like much earlier. So, like I was talking about, I'm going to keep kind of that green for now. Remove some of that, remove some of this. And probably for the cloud cover and things of that nature, I might just come back and kind of show that on top of it, the way how it's kind of meant to look, and the more kind of cut out style. Like having those details for things like cloud cover, excuse me, and sunlight coming through, that's really important. But I want to make sure I'm doing it in a way that feels fitting to my style. Yeah, if you throw somebody into the sun in this world, they might get cut. Paper cut. I'm going to show you guys something else, right? We have this hill that we're looking at back here, and what I also want to show is how something that's closer to the foreground is going to contrast against the background. So one of the techniques that I like to kind of showcase is that, like, things in the background here are going to be brighter than things in the foreground. And so if there's another kind of, you know, hillside over there, which there is, then if that's closer to us in the middle ground, this is how it's going to look. Just a bit darker than its kind of big brother back there. As you can see. I'm going to go back and, you know, kind of clean this up also. Make sure that, you know, those contours are very clean, especially as we start getting closer to you know, again, like us, where we're located in this kind of visual, in this case the foreground, then details start to get a bit clearer for our eyes. I'm going to do something else with this side over here. And so these kind of, you know, mountain formations, they go from being basically in the, like, middle, almost foreground to the background, because there's a lot going on up here that is just like way off into the distance. And so because of that, there's going to be a gradation between the two. And I'll show you how that's going to look. Just like that. And I'm going to start to put on the details like this. So notice that this side over here to the left is much closer to us. So it's going to be a lot darker. And then once we start moving up the hillside, I'm going to start to make it lighter. You'll see what I mean. Especially for this region. It's much closer to the sky. And so, yeah. Like, that's going to kind of reflect in this too. So just quickly isolating, these shapes. Same thing for the sail. And remember I said that this is translucent, so we're probably going to see a debut again of like that green make an appearance within the sail itself. Not to the same potency, but to some effect. So just clearing that out, that's done. And what we're also going to see for the water here is a reflection of whatever visuals are up here. There's going to be a little bit of that down here as well too. So we'll get to that soon. I do want to kind of throw on that color for the water. I think I'll do that now. And so my style, as you all are familiar with, is very anime and manga inspired. It is manga, but it's, obviously like just anime inspired. And so as such, you're going to see these things where there are these kind of hints of cartooniness that show through. In fact, there's going to be a lot of cartooniness that shows through. And for the water, that's going to be one of those areas where it does too. The waters of this region are meant to be very kind of clear and crystalline, and so you're going to kind of see that in how they're presented, but you're also going to see these kind of like beautiful hues of blue as well too. I want to capture that in this. Just like we see it in the sky above. We're going to find it over here too. Alright, now I'm just kind of throwing this on. To this region here. And in actuality, I can probably just go ahead and just fill this in, because ultimately a lot of this is going to get replaced with other shapes and things of that nature that go on top of it. Now, one thing I do want to kind of just brighten up and add on would probably be the sky above here. It's nice, but I think it can be a little bit brighter. And so I'm gonna see how that looks. I think brightening that up to somewhere right around here, that feels alright. I'm okay with that. We're going to keep it right there. And I also want to see what I can do with this rock formation. So what's really important in this particular environment, especially on a color design basis, is this notion of contrast. Like creating something that's really cozy, but that's also got a decent amount of contrast, like enough to keep it really interesting for the eye. And so what I want are these bright blues kind of in the water, but also these kind of sandy beaches, or these hints of it in areas like this cove over here that have this, you know, like orange, kind of sandy touch to them. And, you know, blue and orange are colors that directly contrast, with one another. And so this is why I'm using something that's like very bright in this kind of choice here, so that it's, you know, reflective, it's representative of sand, but it's also true, it's staying true to the cozy theme that I'm trying to go for with this realm. And a lot of these influences I attribute to a lot of level design and things like Spyro the Dragon. I was kind of talking about a few things, Spyro, Jak and Daxter. You know, a lot of the kind of Naughty Dog era games. And I kind of want to do a callback to that in this. And again, I'm still just kind of throwing things on. Very rough, very basic. And especially for these stone areas, that's where we're going to start to see, you know, some of that gradation like I was talking about with the texture and things of that nature. Especially as we start to kind of migrate from foreground to middle ground, you're going to see that darker to lighter cadence make itself present again within the composition. So all of this is very kind of ugly and chicken scratch, as I like to call it. And that's okay, because the main purpose of what I'm doing right now is just to map out what the underlying color is supposed to be for each region. And as I start to do this, there are going to be other regions that overlap onto this where I can start to see where they do, and I can kind of clean those up in real time as I catch them. And keeping everything somewhat labeled and organized is still really important with this, because you don't want to get to a point in which you've got a million layers and you don't know which one is which. So that's why you're going to see me labeling things as I kind of go through and interact with the different layers and colors on each of them. So we're back to this stone face. I'm going to zoom in. And just keep on going around the contours, brushing that up, cleaning it up. Same thing for here. These soft edges that you see spilling out the lines, sometimes keeping them is nice because, you know, it works really well with kind of showcasing ambient lighting onto different areas that are nearby, but that's kind of in like a very niche specific instance. When it comes to things that have a decent amount of space between them, you generally don't want that. And so that's why in a lot of my drawings, I'm going ahead and just kind of, you know, cleaning that up as I find it. Like even here, check this out. This sand is really bright, this rock face is not so much. When light is kind of hitting off of this, because this is partially exposed, this area beneath this rock is also meant to reflect some of that lighting. I'm going to show you how I envision that to look. I'm finding a middle ground between this color and this one here, and then I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. It needs to be a little bit brighter than what I just did. And you can see kind of what I'm talking about here. We've got this really kind of funky gradation going on. And even within that, there's going to be a lot of cleanup work. And then, you know, more gradation as well too, from what's going on here to what's going to go on elsewhere. So cleaning this up, getting those contours again, just quickly carving that out. Still carving it out. Like that. And zooming out, getting the outside of this, cleaning that up. I'm probably just going to start cleaning up some of this other portion over here too. So I want that to be another gradient. And there's a possibility that I'll put like moss on this, but for now I'm just going to keep this as part of the rock face. So we've got, you get to the ink dropper tool, there we go. We've got this, going to brighten that up, desaturate it ever so slightly, and then put some effects on here. I'm really just going to make this a lot bigger, because at this point I'm going to start working on that kind of reductive, you know, eraser approach that I was talking about before. And go through here, come around this way. And just clear that out like so. And, you know, I'm just getting every single corner of this contour. So if I really want to, there are faster ways for me to just kind of, you know, delete everything that's not inside of that. I could use the lasso tool. It's going to take a lot of clicking, but yeah, just getting the parts that are closest to the lines in my process kind of matters the most. Like I did there. And now I'm going to tactfully erase. But before I do that, you know, I need to kind of visualize what is the texture of this rock wall. It's not perfectly flat. And so because of that, some areas are going to be a little bit more shaved away than others. Like, for instance, I think, let's see, that's going to come down like that. Let's see. Tricky. Clean that up a little bit. Clean this up some. A bit of attention there. Now it's time to add some highlights onto it. Just some. When I'm talking about highlights, I'm really talking about areas to show that this surface is not flat. And that can take a couple of different forms. That can be me literally going ahead and adding another color on top of it, like this, and erasing away, like turning down that opacity for sure. But then erasing where I think things are necessary. Like this. I'm gonna go to the eraser. then for this side, perhaps I could do the same. Do I need to do the same? I think that's for me to figure out, and so far, about to experiment a little bit. It's dark, that's going to be darker, not lighter. So, this is the part of my process where I am still trying to figure things out. And in doing so, I'm trying to figure out like what this feels like as a surface. I can start to kind of, figure out what colors make the most sense to show where, because until that's solved, anything else can kind of just become a little incoherent when it comes to the rhetoric as to why. So, yeah, having a reason as to why things have the colors on them to show what textures they are, that's definitely what's going on, what should go on, I think, in my work, and that's kind of where I'm at. Like, same thing for that, but sharp shapes. As I look at that, I accidentally put that onto the same layer. Don't want that. Put this here. Put that there. And then, like I was talking about, sharper shapes. So, I got this. Got that. And this one here. And then just getting rid of these over here, because this is where that surface ends. Same thing for over here. And now figuring out what's going to happen up there. That's kind of one of the next priorities I need to work on. This one's going to be a little important too. Try that. And then some more erasing here. Some there. And this is just kind of part of my process for making these like very layered geometries that ultimately get cut out and erased. Is that what I want? That is very dark. I think it should be a little bit lighter and probably a little bit more reflective of the water instead of the shadow of that. So, let's try seeing what that looks like. That's currently set to a black. Let's see what that looks at more of a blue. It's a little too bright, but I think that's moving in the right direction. Let's confirm this. And then erase with this. Turn that down just a little bit like that. And you get the rest of the colors kind of squared away for everything else. So, to start with that, I'm going to end up filling out the rest of this, everything that needs that color. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of complete that job there. So that's where it needs to be. That's going to be our kind of background for that. Getting rid of this. And so we've got that there. And now, this should be a little bit darker. Just trying to get into like these nook and crannies, basically, just making sure that all of that is kind of just like filled out the way how it needs to be. And again, because this layer is going to be put underneath of something else, it doesn't need to be, you know, the level of detail on like some of these blemish areas, like for this, don't need to be as fine-tuned, because those are going to get covered up anyway. So I'm going to see just what type of hue looks good for this green. I think that that's a good color. Just enough to make it distinguishable from, you know, the kind of forested areas all the way back there in the background, but also similar enough at the same time. So filling that in, same thing for this area underneath, or through this cave, I mean. Just filling all of that in. And those will get cleaned up too later. It's not bad. Though, I think that this area needs to kind of have some love too, so we're going to make sure that we're covering that. So yeah, that's not the worst. Yeah, still trying to get like the vibe down correctly. But there's progress. There's definitely progress. Now this part's going to be important. I need to get the left-hand portion of the hillsides kind of captured correctly. And in particular, these areas toward the top. So this needs to be a nice gradient. And that's going to be a gradient that kind of goes from, you know, like very light, a little less saturated, down to this forest green that we see. So similar to what we see back here, down to something that we see over here. And that contrast will not be as stark. It's going to kind of blend in much better. And to get that to happen, here's what I'm going to do. Close this. I need to get my paintbrush, get the eyedropper tool, switch back, and just kind of airbrush that in. Not that high up, but I think that that's probably a much more appropriate gradation for what I'm looking for, what I've got right here. And again, I'm just going through and kind of, you know, putting on some of those additional details. The ones where this needs to just kind of have the contours handled in a way that keeps everything contained. Very light patchwork. Should probably save this. I don't think I've saved this once. That would be important. Okay, so that's there. Got that saved. Okay, so brightness. Right now, the way how this is set up, it feels a little... needs to be brighter. Before getting to that, I'm going to get back to the clouds. And... we're going to go back to what's going on over here. So just mapping this out. Very simple captures. And then those will get erased with the, or the contours around these will get defined once areas are erased outside of them. Let me turn this down just a little bit for that opacity. That way I can really kind of focus on what's what. And as you can see, just erasing outside of that. I'm just going to make this bigger. Do a second pass. Got that cleaned up. Same thing for this one. Got our clouds. And rock formations. So I'm going to go ahead and do some work on these rock formations. Right now they are just a little too... I'm not happy with them. Yeah, I'm not happy with the color. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of go back. I'm going to kind of take this back to the drawing board. And I'm going to start with some very simple grays. Like almost, I would say cobalt, like really grayed out cobalt blues. As soon as I can find the layer for it. And just kind of work my way up from there. So that's what's going to happen right now. So that's for that color, that's for that. Or really, you know, I think it's just... it's kind of like that one area, that one little ledge that's kind of throwing me off. Let me try getting rid of this. It's not bad. It's better. But I do think that maybe maybe this brown, maybe I could use some blue inside of there too. I'm going to get back to that in a little bit, but for starters, let me just kind of work on blending this gradation in appropriately. So I'm going to bring this probably below, like that. And from here, I can start to erase where I see fit. Like this. As a matter of fact, no, here's what I'm going to do, guys. I'm literally just going to work on keeping the flat tones on here first. For all the highlights, I'll handle that later. So, yeah, that's going to be my process for now. For those of you who are still tuned in, I just want to say thank you. I'm happy to have you guys with me on this journey. I am trying to figure out my style when it comes to painting, when it comes to digital painting. It's still very much an experimental journey for me, and generally speaking, the end verdict is pretty consistent for what I release in terms of my art, but you know, I'm still growing as an artist, and especially as a you know, digital painter. So yeah, that's all I really got to say. That's what's going on here. You're watching me kind of walk, or try to walk, crawl and walk at the same time through my journey here. Amira, welcome and thank you. Happy to have you on. Whoa, that's not what I want. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in. Clean up some of these contours here. Control Z is just a digital artist's best friend. Gotta do a quick stretch break. Definitely need to turn up the fan. There we go. Having all of these lights on, it definitely gets to you a little bit, but it's worth it. All of this is definitely worth it from where I was. So one thing I was talking about was this notion of trying to kind of bring down the saturation of what's going on here. Like, I like the brown, but I also want to look a bit more like, you know, hard stone and not quite mud. Not saying that looks like mud per se, but I think it looks a little bit more mud-esque than it should. So here's what I'm gonna do. I was talking about the cobalt thing. I think that having something that's a little bit more in this kind of ballpark, a little less saturated, a little bit more gray, essentially, could be a nice addition to add to this, you know, kind of rock wall over here. So I'm just gonna see what does that color kind of look like on here, and that's a kind of nice color, I'd say. Just kind of putting that on this area over here. And eventually having that fill in these kind of crevice areas here too for the shadows. It's not bad. Let's bring that back. Now this is the tricky part. Erasing in a way that is still true to form, yet not too aggressive. That hard eraser is a little detrimental for what I'm looking to do. I want something a bit softer like this. Yeah, there we go. Much, much, much better. Go. And so maintaining that cutout, chiseled sculptor effect is really important in my work. The soft brush definitely helps out a lot more with that, I feel. What I'm doing right now is I'm actually just trying to go back and clean up some of the areas that overlap. Like you're going to see this green over here. Try to get this a bit more in view. That green over there, I'm trying to get rid of that. I just found the layer that belongs to. So we've got that resolved. This is the next thing I'm going to resolve. So zooming in again, just like that. Getting rid of this. I'm trying to be very prescriptive with how much pressure I'm putting on this right now. I can always switch to a smaller brush size or shrink it down too, but I'm just being a little lazy. So what's really going to make this composition kind of pop off is once the dual tones start getting introduced into some of the other environmental textures. And that's still something that's TBD. As a matter of fact, you know what's TBD? Getting the color of this tower. I don't know why I haven't done that yet, but I'm about to do that right now. So these are the hills. This tower is most definitely in front of them. So we're going to zoom in. I want this to kind of have like a marble sort of feel to it. And so I'm thinking color-wise, what we're going to do is, let me see, I said marble. I think having that kind of gray effect that we see right there, but introducing it in a way to where it's still kind of, it's got maybe like an orangey hue to it. I'm gonna see how this looks. Starting off, and then, you know, adding the shadows and other areas will be the next thing. And so one thing that I'm also going to do with this is, you know, it's got various kind of pieces of decor on it, you know, inscriptions and paintings and things of that nature. Those are going to be filled in as well. And I'm still sticking with this aquatic theme, like I've mentioned, and we're going to see that kind of show in a bit. Can't promise that I'm going to get all of this done tonight, but at least some good progress to kind of show for. And that's the main goal. Something I do want to do is just to kind of get some more of the just like areas mapped out for what colors belong to what before it gets too late in the night. And I'm thinking that for our traveler, I really want some good attention to be kind of placed on his craft here. And so something that's going to really kind of jump out is going to be this red that I'm imagining on the kind of this hill pattern here. And I want this to intentionally really kind of, you know, as I mentioned, just kind of distinguish itself from the rest of what's going on the composition. So even though this isn't filled in just yet, you can already see that there's a lot of contrast with just this theme over here. And that's what I'm going for. I was thinking about, you know, like an orange or a red, but I think that this red is okay. And so one of the cool things about like manufactured designs like this, obviously, you know, this was printed on this boat or on the sail for the boat, is that in having these really stark lines that have been generated from, you know, me inking this, I can go to the drawing and isolate regions in it and then delete away where necessary. So I'm going to try this right here to see how well this works. Just like that. That's one. That is two. That's another. I'm not sure about that one. This doesn't look like a viable candidate. This one would be. So with this, and you guys can just kind of see how I'm like going through and kind of subtracting the color from the wind sail here. And that very much is the intention, having the ability to do just that. That's why having consistent and connected lines goes a very long way in the hand-drawn portion of this. It won't always be perfect when you're trying to select this and, you know, delete things, but it's a very good start if done correctly. Alright, let's zoom out. getting somewhere. And so because it seems like some of the lines don't actually connect from the drawing, what I'm going to end up doing is just manually going through and getting rid of the rest of that feather, the kind of softer edges around here. And because of all the work that I did before, it's really not going to be too time consuming, thankfully. So it's just a matter of going through and erasing some of these spots over here, like you can see. Just a very gentle movement of the hand here will allow me to do so. And guys, you may have noticed that I changed my sitting position ever so slightly. That's because I've been sitting down for a long ass time. I have to get comfortable. So again, just very quick movements to kind of take care of that. I'm gonna go back and zoom in on this. Get rid of the kind of patterns in between here, like that. And just do more of the light cleanup work in the areas that need it. Just like that. Same thing for this one. Okay, that's much better. So yeah, that's kind of cleaned up like that. There's still a lot of work to be done on this, but it's getting a lot closer. Let's see. So, I've got the kind of base tone mapped out for the tower. What else? I'll zoom out a little bit more. Guys, I think this might be a good spot for me to call it a night. Even though this has like a lot of work left to be done, I'm pretty sure that by the next time I talk about this sketch and show it onto the good old YouTube, this will be complete. Sometimes I just like, take time and kind of, drill my attention into, like the color mapping and the contours and, the shading. And I'm able to come back with something that's, like really legitimate and kind of, a lot more matured. And I'm thinking that that's probably what's going to happen with this again. And I will very happily explain my process to all of you. Shikaria wise. I know you. Welcome to the stream. Happy to have you on. I'm glad you think that's looking really cool. And yeah, I think that once I kind of take it back to the drawing board, bring it back to the internet, we'll be in a really good spot for this to be, at completion or somewhere really close to it. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And until next time, I will see you soon. Cheers and bye.